Hello and welcome back to the channel. So the last video was all about getting this thing down for an MOT, and while it did fail miserably by dropping its brake fluid all over the floor, rust in the sills, we'll park that for 1 second. Considering all the work I'd done, it actually went really well, but it gave me a chance to drive the car for the first time ever, which was great. A little bit bouncy, a little bit firm in some spots, but I love it. Now, one thing I did notice is that the engine had quite a strong ticking sound, and some of you picked up on this as well. And there was two trains of thought in the comments, one of them being that the oil hadn't just gotten around the engine yet and lubricated the tappets and things like that. And the other train of thought is because I got the cam orientation wrong originally and turned the car over, I could have damaged the valves, and it could be that what's ticking. So to get a general idea of the health of the engine, I thought I'd do a compression test to find out what happens from here on out. Right, so you can pay quite a lot of money for a compression tester kit. That isn't this type of kit. This was probably one of the cheapest you can find on Amazon. Now, this isn't a sponsored video at all. It's one of the cheapest I could find. I think I paid around £17 for it. So at this price point, we're not expecting fantastic accuracy, but more on that in a bit. I'll include a link in the description below if you want to check this out, but for now let's have a quick look inside to see what you get with the kit. Alright then, so in the kit, that's what you get. Now the idea is that this will measure compression in the cylinders of your engine, and you screw this in or hold it on to where your spark plug would normally go. So you take your spark plug out, you either screw this gauge in using one of these adapters, or you can hold the adapter using one of these up against it, which I won't be doing because it's not very accurate. And then you get a reading. Once you turn the engine over and you get a bit of compression in those cylinders, this gives you a reading on how much pressure you're building up. Now, the K-Series engine does run quite high compression anyway, and I'll pop that up on the screen somewhere now. And at this price point for this kit, it's not going to be very accurate. So what I'm going to be relying on is the reading between each of the four cylinders. I'm going to hope that they're within 10% of one another. If one is particularly low, or if more than one are particularly low, then that could reveal problems with poor or low compression. And that could be for a few reasons. It could be because you're getting leakage past the worn or poorly fitted head gasket. It could be leakage past the piston rings if they're worn, or if the valves, inlet or outlet valves, aren't seated correctly, or if they're damaged, then you're going to get leakage past them, and so you're going to get poor compression there as well. So hopefully they'll all be pretty consistent, whatever the reading, but we'll find out. Right, so the first thing I need to do is remove all the wiring from the top of the engine, all the ignition coils and the packs and what have you, so got to get them off first. So I'm going to leave this wiring here, but I'm going to unclip it from down here as well, just to be on the safe side. I don't want to get any shocks or anything like that. I'm sure I'm not going to get shocked off there, but just to be on the safe side. Right, so with that disconnected, I'm now going to remove all four spark plugs, because as the engine's turning over, if I was to leave 3 spark plugs in and test one cylinder, the other 3 cylinders are still going under compression as the engine's turned over, so it's going to make the battery work harder. So I'm going to take all of the spark plugs out, and hopefully that should make life easier. Yeah, as is typical, it's throwing it down. So I've got the spark plugs out. So the next thing I need to do is isolate the fuel pump, because as I do the test, if the fuel pump isn't isolated, it's still sending fuel into the cylinders. It's going to get flooded. I don't want to do that. So from what I've read online, underneath the bonnet you've got the fuse box, and in there you've got 2 30 amp fuses marked ECU. One of them will isolate, or should isolate, the fuel pump. The other one will isolate pretty much everything, and you won't even be able to turn the engine over. So I'm going to pull one of those out, turn the ignition on. I'm going to listen to see if the fuel pump primes. If not, then we should be good to go, if it stops raining. Right, the rain has stopped, Quick. Right, so I've not seen any diagrams, I've only sort of read text, and it said second in from the left, presumably looking at it that way. I think it's this one. I think this one stops the engine from turning over. It's this one that should isolate the thingy. Right, let's see if it primes. Okay. Okay, I've got hazard lights on and everything. I don't hear the fuel pump priming though. I'm going to try and start it. Okay, so that is the right fuse. Cool. Right, so I now need to connect this hose to here. Feels like quite a snug fit, which is kind of good, I suppose. I then need to attach the right adapter onto the end of here, but before I do, I'm going to just put a little bit of oil, engine oil, around here to help it seal. Makes me feel better. Do it around them as well. Right. Now, because the spark plugs are buried right the way down there, I'm not going to be able to get any kind of grip on this to snug it up, to tighten it up. I am relying on just turning this hose, so I don't know how well this is going to seal. Right, so this is cylinder 1. I'm going to work my way through here. Now, I'm not going to be able to see this. I'm just going to turn it over just for a few seconds, and then we'll see what sort of reading we get when we come back. I've got nowhere to put this really. So it's gone a lot slower that time. Anyway, we've got a reading of, what's that? Just under 8 bar or 110 psi. Now, I have no idea if that's good or bad until I do the other 3. So I'll get on with it. Oh, and of course, before undoing that, there is a pressure relief switch, which I'll just press and undo. Okay, so this is cylinder 2. So on cylinder 2, we've got probably about 113 psi. So that's a good sign. Okay, so cylinder 3. So on cylinder 3, we've got, well, about 113, 114 psi. So that's very good. It's almost suspiciously good. Okay, so cylinder 4. Right. What do we get? It's 100 psi, so slightly less in this cylinder compared to the other 3. These are almost identical. I'm really happy with that performance, to be honest. Quite happy with that. They're very consistent. I still don't know, you'll know, I don't know what the pressure of this compression should be, but that'll also give us an indication on how accurate this gauge is for £17. Yeah, so I'm quite pleased with that. So fairly consistent. So to me, at least, that suggests it's probably less an issue with damaged valves and stuff, and it's actually just oil getting around the engine. Yeah, very pleased with that. Okay, so I'm going to put all this back together and just make sure it starts. So I think it's all back together. Do I hear a fuel pump? I do. Something doesn't sound right. Something doesn't sound right. So I don't know why, but it's running dog rough. Almost like when I first started it. Something ain't right. Why? Right, there's good news and there's bad news. So the good news is the engine's running okay now. All I did was I swapped the coil packs over and it's running fine. I don't know. So when I put the coil packs back originally, I probably didn't press them down hard enough, but it's running fine now. The bad news is I think I know why I had such low readings with compression test around 100 psi. It's because I should have had the throttle all the way open when turning it over. Kudos to those of you that spotted that. So bad news is I need to do the compression test all over again. Right, everything is back together once more, and I've put the spark plugs and I've put the leads all back into the position, the same position that they were in when it was working before I did this second test. Now I've not started this today, but there's the ticking, but that's running as it should, as I know it to. Great. Right, let's have a look at those figures. Okay, so the results are in. On that second test with the throttle open, I got 120 psi on the first cylinder, the same again on the second, 110 on the third, and 105 psi on the fourth cylinder. Now compared to the first test I did with the throttle closed, it's not that big of a difference. It's very similar, in fact. I don't know, I was expecting a bigger leap, maybe up to the 180s, but not so. So that either means the engine is completely knackered, which I don't believe, because when I took this through for its MOT and I drove it, it was getting down the road fine. So I don't believe that. I daren't believe that. Or it means this kit's readings are way off, and for £17 I'm more inclined to believe that. So can I recommend it? If you're going to compare each cylinder to each other and look at the variance between the cylinders, then possibly. But to be honest, if you want accurate readings, you need to be looking at either a more expensive kit or taking it into a garage and getting it done professionally, really. But interesting exercise. Yeah, so I'm actually kind of, with this video, procrastinating a little bit. I'm putting off the big 2 videos that I need to do, which is the next one, which is the brake lines, and then the rust. Now the brake lines will be interesting because I'm not just swapping them out, I'm not getting them from an off-the-shelf part that's all moulded to where it needs to go. I'm actually buying a reel of brake line, Kernifer I think it is, and flaring the ends and everything. So that'll be in the next video. I'll see you in that one.